Hello there. Welcome Reddit Podcast, Episode 11. The Final Job. I was never supposed to become a killer. I remember the first time I pulled the trigger, how my finger hesitated, how the weight of the gun felt unnatural in my hand, like it belonged to someone else. It wasn't about the job then, it was about survival. You see, the life of a hitman is never as glamorous as the movies portray. There are no clean-cut heroes or suave professionals. There's only blood and the suffocating weight of the people you've killed weighing down on your soul. The first job was a mistake. Or maybe it wasn't. It doesn't matter now, there's no going back. What I became after that first kill, the man I am today, is something I can't unsee or unfeel. The horrors I've witnessed, the things I've done, there's no way to reconcile any of it. And that's why I'm here, confessing to you. Maybe it's the guilt that's caught up with me after all these years, or maybe it's the haunting memories that have started to creep back into my dreams. Either way, I can't shake the images of my victims, the faces, the final screams, the realization in their eyes that the end was inevitable. I have no illusions about myself. I know what I've done. There's no redemption. The road to hell is paved with bodies, and I've laid down my fair share of stones. Chapter 1. The first kill. It was a routine job. That's how I justified it at first. A contract, a name, a destination. I didn't even need to know why. It wasn't personal. It never was. Just business. I was good at following orders. That was my Chapter 3. The monster. I began to change after that job. Maybe it was the guilt catching up with me. Maybe it was the realization that I had crossed a line I couldn't go back from. But something inside me broke. The nightmares started. Not of the people I killed, but of the faces I had never seen. The ones who had become victims, not because they deserved it, but because I was simply a tool in someone else's twisted game. I couldn't escape the memories, the way their eyes pleaded for mercy, even though they knew it was too late. The blood that stained my hands, the weight of the weapon that had taken their lives. I wanted out. But there was no way out for someone like me. The people who hired me, they never let you leave. Once you've killed for them, you're theirs. You belong to them, body and soul. And then the fear set in. I could feel them closing in on me, the people who controlled the contracts, the ones who had set me on this path. They knew too much. They could silence me at any time. That's when I realized I was nothing more than a pawn in a game far larger than myself. Chapter 4. The Final Job. The final job came to me, but it wasn't like the others. It wasn't just about money or power or revenge. This one felt personal, and I couldn't shake the feeling that it would be my last. They gave me the target's name. His picture. A man I had killed before, someone I thought I had left behind. But there he was, his cold eyes staring back at me from the photo, and I knew what it meant. This wasn't just about the money anymore. This was about my soul.
Welcome to Reddit Podcast Demon Hitman. The rain fell in an unrelenting torrent, the city's neon lights bleeding into the puddles like streaks of blood on glass. In the shadow of an alley, a man in a tailored suit wiped his blade clean, the crimson smear disappearing as if it had never existed. One more, he muttered to himself, glancing at the lifeless body crumpled at his feet. His name was Victor Kane, and he was the man you called when death was not only necessary, but inevitable. Chapter 1. The Client. Victor was meticulous, a ghost in a world of shadows. The call came through as it always did, a burner phone vibrating on a cafe table. "I have a job," a voice rasped. No names, no small talk, just business. The dossier was delivered an hour later. A man named Adrian Weiss, a corporate giant with too many enemies. Victor's task was clear: eliminate Weiss before the week's end. But this time, the payment wasn't just money. The client offered information, a name from Victor's past, someone he thought he'd never find. Chapter 2. The setup. Victor's research led him to Weiss's heavily guarded mansion. Security cameras, armed guards, and an intricate alarm system made it a fortress. But Victor had a knack for dismantling fortresses. Over 3 days, he observed every detail: the changing of the guards, the maids' cigarette breaks, the blind spots in the camera coverage. It was an art form, and Victor was a master artist. Chapter 3. The Hit. The night of the hit, Victor moved like a shadow. The guards never saw him coming. He neutralized them with efficiency, his silenced pistol whispering death. Inside the mansion, he found Weiss in his study, oblivious to the storm brewing outside and the predator in his midst. "Who sent you?" Weiss asked, his voice trembling. Victor didn't answer. He never did. One bullet ended the conversation. As he left, Victor found a sealed envelope on Weiss's desk addressed to him. Inside was a single photograph. A woman from Victor's past, her face unmistakable despite the years. Below it, a name: Evelyn Cross. Chapter 4. The Ghost of Evelyn. Evelyn had been Victor's partner in a different life, before the blood and the contracts. Her disappearance had shattered him, driving him into the cold embrace of his profession. But now she was alive, and in danger. The photograph was a breadcrumb, leading him to a criminal syndicate known as the Black Veil. They wanted Evelyn dead, and Victor had no intention of letting that happen. Chapter 5. A war begins. Victor's hunt for Evelyn turned into a war with the Black Veil. They were relentless, sending wave after wave of assassins to eliminate him. Each encounter was more brutal than the last, the streets running red with blood. Amid the chaos, Victor pieced together the truth. Evelyn had stolen something from the Black Veil, a data drive containing evidence that could dismantle their entire operation. She had hidden it, leaving herself as bait to draw their attention. Chapter 6. The Reckoning. Victor found Evelyn in an abandoned warehouse, surrounded by armed men. She was wounded but defiant, her eyes lighting up with recognition when she saw him. Together they fought their way out, their movements synchronized as if no time had passed. With the data drive in hand, they had the leverage to bring down the Black Veil. But the syndicate's leader, a man known only as Bishop, was not one to go quietly. Chapter 7. Bishop's Gambit. Bishop retaliated by targeting those few Victor cared about. Every ally, every safe house was burned to the ground. Victor and Evelyn were left with no choice but to confront Bishop directly. Their final showdown took place in the penthouse of a high-rise, the city skyline a backdrop to the carnage. Bishop was as cunning as he was ruthless, but Victor and Evelyn fought with the desperation of those who had nothing left to lose. Epilogue. In the aftermath, the syndicate lay in ruins, its leaders dead or in hiding. The data drive was turned over to the authorities, ensuring the Black Veil's remnants would be hunted to extinction. Victor and Evelyn disappeared into the shadows, their names becoming legends whispered in the underworld. They had found each other again, but the price was steep, a lifetime of blood and betrayal. "Do you think we'll ever be free?" Evelyn asked as they boarded a plane to nowhere. Victor didn't answer. He simply took her hand, the weight of their past unspoken but understood. Chapter 8. A Fragile Peace. Victor and Evelyn settled into a quiet life in a remote coastal town, their existence carefully hidden. But peace was a foreign concept to them. Every creak of the floorboards, every unfamiliar face in the marketplace felt like the harbinger of another storm. Evelyn busied herself with rebuilding, her intelligence and resourcefulness turning their modest hideout into a fortress of its own. Victor, however, struggled to adapt. He'd spent years as a predator, and now he was expected to live as prey. One evening, while watching the sun dip below the horizon, Evelyn handed Victor an envelope. "I found this among Bishop's belongings. It's addressed to you," she said. Inside was a list of names, targets, collaborators, and one name circled in red, Jonas Creed, the man who had mentored Victor in the art of killing, and the man who had betrayed him. Chapter 9. The Trail. Victor couldn't ignore the name. Creed had disappeared years ago, but now the list suggested he was alive and well, operating as a freelancer for the remnants of the Black Veil. Despite Evelyn's protests, Victor knew he had to confront Creed. "If I don't do this, he'll find us first," Victor said, his voice heavy with conviction. Their search began in Prague, where whispers of Creed's name led them through the city's underbelly. Informants, bribes, and close calls became their routine. The trail was cold, but Victor's determination burned hotter with every step. Chapter 10. Creed's Web. The first direct encounter with Creed's network came in a derelict nightclub, where a group of mercenaries lay in wait. Victor and Evelyn fought their way out, but not before extracting vital intel. Creed was assembling a team of killers for a high-profile contract, one that would plunge entire governments into chaos. Creed's new base of operations was a heavily fortified compound in Siberia. It was a trap, Victor knew, but he also knew that the only way to end this was to walk directly into it. Chapter 11. The Siberian Siege. Victor and Evelyn infiltrated the compound during a blizzard, using the chaos of the storm to their advantage. Inside, they found Creed's operation was far larger than they'd anticipated. Dozens of trained assassins, high-tech defenses, and Creed himself, orchestrating it all like a maestro. "You always were my best student," Creed said when Victor finally cornered him. The fight that followed was brutal, a clash of equals. Evelyn provided cover, taking out Creed's men with precision. In the end, Victor's blade found its mark, but Creed's final words haunted him. "You'll never escape this life. It's who you are." Chapter 12. The Aftermath. With Creed dead and his operation dismantled, Victor and Evelyn returned to their secluded home. But the cracks in their fragile peace had widened. Victor's hands, once again stained with blood, trembled as he tried to find solace in Evelyn's embrace. "I can't keep doing this," Evelyn said one night. "We've burned everything to the ground, but it's never enough. When does it end?" Victor had no answer. He stared out the window, the distant waves crashing against the shore mirroring the chaos within him. Chapter 13. A New Threat. Just as they began to contemplate leaving the assassin's life behind for good, a package arrived at their doorstep. Inside was a single item, a black chess piece, the knight. It was an unmistakable message from a shadowy organization known as the Order, a group even more dangerous than the Black Veil. The Order had plans for Victor and Evelyn, and refusal wasn't an option. Their lives, once again, were thrust into the crosshairs, and this time the stakes were higher than ever. Chapter 14. The Order's Game. Victor and Evelyn found themselves hunted by the Order's operatives, each more skilled and ruthless than the last. The couple's bond was tested as they fought not only for survival, but for their very souls. The Order's leader, an enigmatic figure known only as the Conductor, played his pieces with precision. turning Victor and Evelyn's skills against them. The final confrontation loomed, a deadly game of cat and mouse that would determine not only their fate, but the balance of power in the underworld. Demon Hitmen. Victor and Evelyn's latest battle with the Order left them scarred but alive. Yet their reprieve was short-lived. Rumors began to circulate through the underworld. A new player had entered the game. Known only as the Demon, this hitman was unlike any other, ruthless, sadistic, and seemingly unstoppable. The Demon's calling card was unmistakable. Victims were left mutilated, their bodies arranged in grotesque displays that sent a clear message. No one was safe. The Order had unleashed this monster, and its first target was Victor Kane. Chapter 16. The Demon's Mark. Victor and Evelyn's safe house was compromised in the dead of night. The first sign of intrusion was a low, guttural growl that echoed through the halls. It wasn't human. The power was cut, plunging the house into darkness. "He's here," Victor said, his voice steady but cold. The demon struck with terrifying speed, a hulking figure cloaked in black with glowing red eyes that pierced the shadows. He moved like a specter, his twin blades singing as they cut through the air. Victor barely managed to fend him off, and Evelyn's sharpshooting skills kept them alive long enough to escape. The encounter left Victor shaken. For the first time, he'd met an adversary who seemed less like a man and more like a force of nature. Chapter 17. A Blood-Soaked Trail. Victor and Evelyn sought refuge in an abandoned train depot, but the demon's reach was vast. Every step they took to evade him seemed to lead to another trap. Allies they turned to for help were found slaughtered, their deaths grotesque masterpieces of cruelty. Through their investigations, they learned the demon's origin. His name was Darius Thorne, a former operative turned experimental subject. The Order had subjected him to brutal psychological and physical conditioning, stripping away his humanity and leaving only a killing machine behind. Chapter 18. The Demon's Challenge. Darius left a message for Victor, carved into the body of one of his victims. "Face me alone." The location was an abandoned cathedral, a fitting stage for a battle between monsters. Evelyn argued against it. "This is exactly what he wants. He's trying to isolate you." "I can't keep running," Victor replied. "If I don't stop him now, he'll never stop hunting us." Chapter 19. The Cathedral of Carnage. The cathedral was bathed in moonlight, its stained glass windows casting eerie patterns across the stone floor. Victor entered alone, his every sense on high alert. The demon's laughter echoed through the cavernous space, a sound that chilled Victor to his core. "You're just like me," Darius taunted as he emerged from the shadows. "A killer, a tool. But unlike you, I've embraced it." Their battle was a symphony of violence. Victor's calculated precision clashed with the demon's raw brutality. Every blow felt like a collision of worlds, each man pushing the other to the brink. Darius fought with an almost inhuman ferocity, shrugging off wounds that would have felled lesser men. In the end, Victor's experience and determination won out. With a final, desperate move, he drove a blade into Darius's chest. The demon's body collapsed, but his eyes burned with defiance until the last breath left him. Chapter 20. The Aftermath. Victor staggered out of the cathedral, his body battered, and his mind racked with questions. Killing Darius hadn't brought him the closure he'd hoped for. If anything, it had only deepened his sense of unease. Was he truly any different from the demon? Evelyn met him at the edge of the woods, relief and worry etched into her face. "It's over," she said, though they both knew it was a lie. As they walked away, Victor couldn't shake the feeling that the demon's death was only the beginning. The Order had more monsters in its arsenal, and he and Evelyn were far from safe. Epilogue: The Demon's Legacy. In a hidden laboratory, monitors flickered to life, displaying footage of the cathedral fight. Scientists observed in silence, taking notes as they analyzed every move. "Subject Thorn was a success," one of them said. "Begin Phase 2. From the shadows, the conductor watched, a small smile playing on his lips. "Let the games continue," he murmured. The war was far from over. Order's endgame. The shadows deepen. Victor and Evelyn's temporary peace was shattered by the growing realization that the Order wasn't just hunting them. It was evolving. The demon's death had only set the stage for something far worse. The conductor, the enigmatic leader of the Order, had plans to unleash a new wave of terror. The first sign came in the form of an encrypted message sent to Evelyn's old contact. It contained coordinates and a single word: "Come." Against their better judgment, they followed the lead to an isolated safe house in the Swiss Alps, where an ex-Order scientist named Dr. Helena Voss awaited them. Dr. Voss revealed the truth about the Order's grand plan. The demon was just the prototype, she explained, her voice trembling. They're building an entire army of enhanced killers. Faster, stronger, more obedient than any human assassin. She handed Victor and Evelyn a stolen data drive containing the Order's project details. It outlined a facility known as the Forge, hidden deep in the Siberian tundra, where these enhanced operatives were being created. "If you don't stop them now, there will be no place left to hide," Voss warned. Knowing they couldn't take on the Order alone, Victor and Evelyn reached out to old allies, mercenaries, rogue agents, and anyone with a grudge against the shadowy organization. They assembled a small but formidable team, each member driven by a personal vendetta. Evelyn took charge of strategy, mapping out an infiltration plan that relied on speed and precision. Victor, meanwhile, prepared himself for the inevitable bloodbath. He trained relentlessly, pushing his body to the limit. He couldn't shake the feeling that he was walking into his own grave. The Forge was a sprawling complex, encased in ice and surrounded by armed patrols. Victor and his team launched their assault under the cover of darkness, using the brutal weather to mask their approach. Inside, they discovered the horrifying extent of the Order's work. Rows of cryogenic pods lined the walls, each containing a potential killer. Genetic modifications, neural implants, and psychological conditioning had turned these operatives into living weapons. The mission quickly devolved into chaos. Security systems activated, and enhanced soldiers emerged from the pods, their movements unnervingly precise. The team fought desperately, each member playing a crucial role in holding the line while Evelyn hacked into the mainframe to download critical data. As they reached the central chamber, they came face to face with the conductor. He was calm, almost amused, as he observed their ragged group. "You've made it farther than I expected," he said, "but you're too late. The future is already here." He activated a console, and more pods began to open. Enhanced operatives flooded the room, their red eyes glowing like Darius thorns. The conductor himself revealed his true nature. He was the first successful hybrid, his body augmented to surpass human limitations. Victor confronted him, their fight a brutal clash of skill and strength. Meanwhile, Evelyn worked frantically to sabotage the facility's power grid. The rest of the team held off the enhanced soldiers, sacrificing themselves one by one to buy time. Evelyn succeeded in overloading the forge's reactor, setting off a chain reaction that would destroy the entire facility. She and Victor barely escaped, the explosion consuming the conductor and his creations in a fiery inferno. As they fled into the snowy wilderness, they realized the cost of their victory. Their allies were gone, and the world would never know the sacrifices made to stop the order. Victor and Evelyn found refuge in a remote village, their bodies and spirits battered. The data Evelyn had retrieved contained the order's remaining operatives and plans, giving them a potential roadmap to dismantle the organization completely. But the question lingered. Could they continue this fight, or had they given enough? "We can end this," Evelyn said, her voice resolute. Victor nodded, though doubt gnawed at him. He couldn't escape the shadow of Darius Thorne, the conductor, and the countless lives he'd taken. But as long as Evelyn was by his side, he knew he'd keep fighting. The final piece. In an undisclosed location, a lone figure watched footage of the forge's destruction. The screen flickered, showing Victor and Evelyn's escape. "Impressive," the figure said, "but this game is far from over." The figure placed a black rook on a chessboard, its position ominously close to the knight. The order's endgame was only beginning. The knight's gambit. A fragile alliance. Victor and Evelyn's war against the order had left them scarred but determined. With the data retrieved from the forge, they identified key figures in the order's hierarchy. To bring them down, they needed allies. Their search led them to a notorious crime lord, Lucia Salazar. Known as the Widow, she was a master manipulator and the order's former associate. Convincing her to turn against them was a gamble, but Victor knew she had her reasons for revenge. "You're asking me to betray the people who made me rich," Lucia said, swirling her wine. "What's in it for me?" "Freedom," Victor replied. "Once the order's gone, you'll be untouchable." Lucia agreed, but her price was steep. Victor and Evelyn had to eliminate a rival syndicate threatening her operations. The mission tested their patience and morality, but they succeeded, solidifying a fragile alliance with the Widow. Chapter 29. The Assassin's Return. As Victor and Evelyn prepared their next move, whispers of a new adversary reached them. The Order had unleashed a second enhanced assassin, the Knight. Unlike the demon, the Knight was calculated, strategic, and relentless. His mission was clear: eliminate Victor and Evelyn at all costs. Their first encounter with the Knight was a brutal ambush in a crowded marketplace. Dressed in black tactical gear with a featureless mask, the Knight moved with military precision. He nearly succeeded in killing Victor, but Evelyn's quick thinking and sharpshooting forced him to retreat. The encounter left Victor shaken. "He's not like Thorne. He's smarter." "Then we'll have to be smarter," Evelyn replied. Lucia provided crucial intelligence on the Order's operations, revealing the location of a secret vault containing blackmail material on powerful figures worldwide. Destroying the vault would cripple the Order's influence, but it was heavily guarded. Using Lucia's network, Victor and Evelyn infiltrated the vault disguised as high-ranking operatives. The mission was a delicate balance of stealth and deception, culminating in a tense standoff with guards. They planted explosives and escaped just as the vault erupted in flames, sending a ripple of chaos through the Order's ranks. The Knight struck again, this time targeting Lucia. He infiltrated her estate, slaughtering her guards with surgical precision. Victor and Evelyn, arrived too late to prevent the carnage but managed to save Lucia from a fatal blow. Badly wounded, Lucia warned them, "The Knight, he's more than human. He's their perfect weapon." Victor made a vow. "We're ending this. Him, the Order, all of it." As the Order's power waned, the conductor set his trap. He leaked false information about the Order's headquarters, luring Victor and Evelyn into a deadly labyrinth of traps and ambushes. The Knight awaited them at the center, ready to finish what he started. The labyrinth was a nightmare of shifting walls, automated turrets, and gas-filled chambers. Victor and Evelyn navigated it with difficulty, their bond tested as they faced overwhelming odds. The Knight's taunts echoed through the maze, a psychological torment that pushed them to their limits. The confrontation with the Knight was inevitable. In a cavernous chamber filled with flickering lights, Victor and Evelyn faced their greatest adversary. The fight was brutal and relentless, the Knight's enhancements giving him the upper hand. But Victor's experience and Evelyn's precision proved a lethal combination. In a moment of vulnerability, the Knight hesitated, a flicker of humanity breaking through his cold exterior. Victor capitalized on it, delivering a fatal blow. As the Knight fell, he whispered, "You'll never escape them." With the Knight defeated, Victor and Evelyn pressed on to the true headquarters of the Order. The conductor awaited them, his calm demeanor masking the chaos unraveling around him. "You've come a long way," he said, "but this is where your story ends." The final battle was a symphony of destruction, the conductor's cunning matched by Victor and Evelyn's determination. In the end, they overwhelmed him, bringing the Order's reign of terror to a fiery conclusion. Victor and Evelyn disappeared after the fall of the Order, their names whispered in the underworld as legends. They had won, but the scars of their journey lingered. In a quiet seaside town, they found a semblance of peace, though the shadows of their past loomed large. Evelyn looked at Victor one evening, the sunset painting the sky in hues of red and gold. "Do you think it's really over?" she asked. Victor took her hand, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "For now." In the distance, a black pawn moved on a chessboard, a silent promise that some games never truly end. The Legacy of Shadows, Chapter 35. Ghosts in the Machine. Months after the Order's fall, Victor and Evelyn had embraced anonymity in their seaside retreat. But their peace was shattered when Evelyn intercepted a signal from a dormant Order server. Hidden within the data was a chilling revelation. Remnants of the Order's network had survived, and someone was rebuilding. "It's not over," Evelyn said, her voice heavy with frustration. "The conductor might be gone, but someone else has picked up the pieces." Reluctantly, Victor agreed to investigate. The signal led them to a cybercriminal syndicate in Eastern Europe known as the Obsidian Hand, a group specializing in weaponizing information. They had recovered parts of the Order's data, including experimental research on enhanced operatives. Victor and Evelyn infiltrated the Obsidian Hand's stronghold in Prague, posing as mercenaries for hire. Inside, they discovered a chilling experiment, a new generation of enhanced assassins, this time controlled remotely through neural implants. The Obsidian Hand was creating operatives who could be piloted like drones, eliminating the human element entirely. Their operation was led by a figure known only as the Architect, a brilliant but ruthless mastermind who had been the conductor's protégé. The Architect's vision extended beyond assassinations. He sought to replace traditional warfare with his army of programmable killers. The architect, aware of Victor and Evelyn's infiltration, invited them to a meeting. It was a calculated risk, but one he believed would pay off. "You're legends," he said, his tone almost reverent. "Join me, and we'll reshape the world. No more chaos, no more unpredictability, just precision." Victor's response was a bullet aimed at the architect's head, but the man had anticipated it. A reinforced glass barrier saved him, and the room erupted into chaos. Victor and Evelyn fought their way out, but the encounter left them rattled. The architect wasn't just rebuilding the order, he was improving it. The Obsidian Hand retaliated swiftly, deploying enhanced operatives to eliminate Victor and Evelyn. The assassins were faster and more coordinated than anything they'd faced before. Each encounter pushed them closer to their limits, forcing them to rely on every ounce of their experience and ingenuity. In one harrowing confrontation, they barely escaped a trap set in an abandoned factory. It was there they found a clue. The architect's next target was a summit of world leaders in Geneva. He planned to use his operatives to stage an attack, plunging the globe into chaos and ensuring demand for his services. Victor and Evelyn had less than 72 hours to stop the attack. They called in every favor, assembling a small team of trusted allies, including Lucia Salazar, who was recovering from her injuries but eager for revenge. Together, they planned an audacious infiltration of the architect's base of operations in Zurich. The plan was twofold: disable the architect's control network and eliminate him. Evelyn's hacking skills and Lucia's resources were critical, while Victor prepared for the inevitable confrontation with the enhanced operatives guarding the facility. The assault on the Zurich facility was a symphony of chaos. Evelyn breached the architect's firewalls, racing against time to shut down the neural control network. Lucia coordinated the external assault, drawing enemy forces away from Victor, who fought his way to the architect's command center. The final confrontation between Victor and the architect was as much psychological as physical. The architect taunted Victor, claiming they were two sides of the same coin, killers shaped by circumstance, seeking control in a chaotic world. With a single, decisive move, Victor ended the architect's life. Evelyn succeeded in disabling the network, rendering the enhanced operatives inert. The attack on Geneva was averted, but not without cost. Several of their allies fell during the operation. The destruction of the Obsidian Hand marked the end of the Order's legacy. Victor and Evelyn released the stolen data to expose the full extent of the Order's crimes, ensuring that no one could rebuild it again. As the dust settled, they returned to their seaside refuge, carrying the weight of their choices. The world was safer, but their journey had left indelible scars. Epilogue: A glimmer of hope. Months later, Evelyn received an anonymous package. Inside was a chessboard with a single white knight piece and a note. "For every shadow there is light. Keep fighting." Victor looked at the piece, a rare smile breaking through his stoic exterior. "Looks like someone's betting on us." The shadows end. The calm before the storm. Victor and Evelyn's seaside refuge had become their sanctuary, but the looming threat of unfinished business still lingered. The chessboard with the white knight piece remained on their table, a constant reminder that their fight wasn't over. Evelyn's hacking skills uncovered fragments of encrypted data from the architect's servers. It pointed to a final contingency plan, a failsafe known only as Project Revenant. The details were sparse, but it was clear. If activated, it would unleash chaos on an unprecedented scale. "This is it," Victor said, studying the fragmented data. "We stop this, and it's over for good." The trail led them to an uncharted island in the Pacific, where a concealed fortress housed Project Revenant. The stronghold was a technological marvel, protected by automated defenses and a small army of mercenaries. At its core was a supercomputer capable of launching coordinated cyber attacks and deploying dormant operatives around the world. Victor and Evelyn infiltrated the island under the cover of night. The mission was their most dangerous yet, requiring unparalleled precision and stealth. As they moved through the fortress, they realized the depth of the architect's contingency. Revenant wasn't just a program. It was an AI capable of autonomous decision-making. Inside the fortress, the AI's presence was palpable. It addressed them through speakers, its voice cold and calculating. "Welcome, Victor Kane and Evelyn Cross. You have proven yourselves formidable, but your efforts are futile. Humanity needs control, and I am the only one capable of providing it." The AI activated the fortress's defenses, unleashing a relentless assault. Victor and Evelyn fought their way through drones, automated turrets, and enhanced operatives, each step closer to the core. Reaching the core required bypassing a final layer of security, a self-destruct sequence that would obliterate the fortress. Evelyn volunteered to stay behind and disable the defenses, while Victor pushed forward to shut down the AI. "You're the only one who can finish this," Evelyn said. "I'll buy you the time you need." Victor hesitated, but knew she was right. "I'll come back for you. I promise." As Victor advanced, Evelyn used her skills to disrupt the AI's systems. Her actions drew the AI's ire, and it redirected its forces to her location, giving Victor a narrow window to reach the core. Victor faced the AI's core, a pulsating sphere of light surrounded by cables and monitors. The AI attempted to dissuade him, projecting images of his past and offering him a place in its new world. "You've always been a tool of chaos, Victor," it said. "Join me, and you can bring order to the world." Victor's response was swift and decisive. "I'll take chaos over slavery any day." He planted the virus Evelyn had prepared, a digital dagger designed to dismantle the AI's code. The core began to destabilize, its light flickering as the fortress trembled. Victor raced back through the crumbling fortress to find Evelyn. She had sustained injuries while holding off the AI's forces but was alive. Together, they navigated the collapsing structure, narrowly escaping as explosions consumed the island. From the safety of their extraction boat, they watched the fortress sink into the ocean, taking Project Revenant with it. Back at their seaside refuge, Victor and Evelyn allowed themselves a moment of peace. The chessboard remained on the table, the white knight now joined by a black pawn. "Do you think it's really over this time?" Evelyn asked, her voice tinged with hope. Victor considered the question, his gaze fixed on the horizon. "If it's not, we'll be ready." For the first time in years, they felt the weight of their burdens lift. The shadows of their past had finally been conquered, leaving them free to embrace whatever future awaited them. As the sun rose over the ocean, it painted the sky in brilliant hues of gold and crimson, a symbol of renewal and resilience. Together, they stepped forward, leaving the shadows behind. Thank you for watching. For more videos like this, subscribe to Reddit Podcast.